I'm Pastor Aaron Harris, and this video is about budgeting basics. In this video, you'll learn about different budgeting categories and how much money you should spend on each of those categories. And if you watch until the end, you'll know how to set a perfectly aligned budget that fits your unique situation. Before you even begin your budget, you should know how much money you should be spending on various categories such as your housing, your transportation, your food, your personal expenses, how much you should be saving, how much you should be giving, how much you should be investing, what you should be putting towards miscellaneous expenses, and how much you should be paying down towards your debt. When it comes to budgeting, we're talking about your net income. Your net income is your take-home pay, which is the amount of money you have left over after you pay taxes and other deductions. Let's dive in by looking at how much money you should be spending on essential expenses such as housing. You should only be spending 25 to 35% of your net income on your housing expenses. Housing expenses include things such as your rent or your mortgage if you're a homeowner, your property taxes if you're a homeowner. It includes your utilities, your garbage, and the upkeep of that home. All the expenses that are related with having a home. And you can throw things like cable and security and Wi-Fi in there in that category as well. When it comes to getting a home, most people get the most expensive home that they can afford, and that is a huge mistake. So if you're paying 40, 45, 50, 55% of your income, if it's going to your housing expenses, then that does not leave room in your budget for you to do important things like save and take care of the other needs that you have. And so many people may be like myself who live in an expensive state like California, and they're saying housing prices are just way too expensive. There's no way I can pay 25 to 35% of my income on housing alone because it costs way more than that. And what I would encourage you to do is to see what you can do, whether you need to move further outside of the city or find more affordable housing, whether you need a roommate instead of living on your own, or you need to downsize your living. One of the first things you want to try to get in order, if you can, in your budget is how much you're spending on housing. Because if you're spending more than 35% of your income on housing, then it really limits the rest of the things that you're able to do with your finances, and it can hinder you, your goals, and your financial future. Next, let's look at food expenses. You should only be spending between 5 to 15% of your income on your food expenses. This includes your dine-in, your takeout, your lunches that you're getting on your lunch break, your dinner dates that you're going out to, your socializing. You should not be spending more than 5 to 15% of your income on food. But a lot of people, we order DoorDash and we're ordering takeout, and we're spending a lot more money on our food than we should be. A lot of people are probably spending $200-300 or even more on food, and that could be money that is saved and invested. So what we have to do is be more mindful about going to the grocery store, about meal prepping, about doing what it is that we can do to be able to save money and not spend that money on food. Many people are not even foodies, where they just love food and food is the most exciting thing for them. Oftentimes what we do is we go for what's convenient. But going for what's convenient and what saves you time and what tastes really good could end up causing you $2, $3, $4, $500 a month. Now imagine if for 10 years you cut back on your food expenses, and instead of paying $300 extra a month on eating out, that if you took those resources and you invested them. If you did that, then you would have an extra $3,600 each and every year. And if you did that for 10 years and you invested that money in an index fund like the S&P 500, then that would give you about $50,000. And so you have to ask yourself, is eating out every day, is spending all this money on food, is it really worth what it is costing me in potential earnings or gains or finances that I would have for my financial future? Now let's take a look at transportation. Transportation is another one of those expenses that creeps up on you. And part of the reason is because it's so easy to go out there and get a car lease or a car note, and people are spending $500, $600, $700, $800, $900, $1,000 on their car note, not including their insurance and their gas. But your transportation expenses should only be between 5 and 15% of your overall net income. If you are spending more than 5 to 15% on transportation, and you're spending 25, 30% of your income on your car, your gas, and the maintenance for your car or ride sharing services, then you are really shooting yourself in the foot, because you have so many other categories, so many other things that you need to do with your finances for your financial future. And so a lot of people feel like, I want a reliable car, I want a new car, I'm going to get something good off of a car lot that's going to be reliable. But oftentimes what we have to do is we have to go back and see, what can I actually afford? Because you don't want to be driving in a nice new car, but because you're driving in a nice new car, now you're in debt, now you're not able to pay all your bills, or you're not able to save, you're not able to invest, you're not able to go on those trips you want to go on, you're not able to do the things that you really want to do because you spent too much money on a car. Just like transportation, your personal expenses should only be between 5 to 15% of your net income. You want to make sure that you're not spending too much money on self-care to the fact where you come back home to an eviction notice, or where your car is going to get repoed, but you want to put it in perspective. Yes, you have to get your essentials that you need to take care of yourself. And yes, it's good to treat yourself sometimes, but everything in moderation. So you should make sure your personal expenses do not exceed 15%. The reason that you want to make sure that your housing, your food, your transportation, and your personal expenses are all in line is so that you can have money to save for the future. You should be saving a minimum of 10% of your net income each and every month. And if you really want to get ahead, you should be saving 20% of your income. But between 10 and 20% of your income is what you should be shooting for to be able to save. That's the money you're gonna put towards your new home, or remodeling your home, or your new car, or your vacation, and all of the future goals that you have. That's the money that you're gonna utilize to invest so that you can create a healthy financial future for yourself. Many people spend all their money on housing, food, transportation, personal expenses, and don't have anything left over for savings. But you want to make sure that you adjust the spending in your various categories so that you could have money to save for your future. In addition to saving, it is always a great idea to go and give. For people who are not Christians or are not believers, still you give generously, maybe to friends, to family members, to different organizations that you believe in that's doing good work. So you should already have that set away in your budget. And it's great to give to show that you can use your resources not just to better yourself, but to help humanity and others. If you're like me and you're affiliated with the church and you're a Christian, then you believe in giving. Most Christians only give about 2 to 3% of their income to their church. But what you should do is you should look at giving at least 5 to 15% of your income to whatever local church you are associated with. 5% is on the low end of giving and 15% is on a higher end of giving. But what you should do is you should pray and be generous so that you can go out and you can bless an organization that can go out and bless others, so that your resources are not just to help yourself, but that they're able to help others as well. The next category is one that is important, but that everyone forgets. And this is miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is just all the things that you didn't see coming. These are the things that break that you didn't know. You didn't know you were going to have car trouble. You didn't know that you were going to get a speeding ticket, right? And so sometimes things in life will happen that we cannot account for, that we did not know that'll happen. And so instead of digging into our savings, we can have a miscellaneous expense, and we can save between 5 to 15% of our income so that we can be prepared for the things that will happen in the future that we don't even know that will happen. Another category that we have to consider is debt. If you have debt, I'm not talking about student loans or home loans, but if you have any other form of debt that's moderately high or high interest debt, credit card debt, and things like that. What you want to do is you want to make sure to pay this off as soon as possible. And so you should be spending at least 10% to 20% of your income of knocking down debt so that you can get rid of it completely. Now, for all of these categories, I gave you the low end and the high end of what you should be spending on each category. Of course, what you need to do now is you need to go add up, what do you prioritize? Do you prioritize a nice home? Do you prioritize spending money on yourself? Do you prioritize a really nice car? And so you should put your budgeting categories in the number of what you prioritize and what you want for your future. Then you should make those percentages and just make sure that they add up to 100% at the end of the day. Of course, if you have a lot of debt, you're going to need to spend less than 35% on housing, or less than 15% on food, or less than 15% on transportation. But if you have no debt at all, maybe you're able to go to the higher end of housing or food or transportation. If housing is important for you and you live in an expensive area, you want a nice home, you may pay a little bit more on housing, but means you may have to pay a little bit less on transportation. Or if you just want that dream nice car, you may pay a little bit more for that car, but that means your housing may have to suffer. But what you have to do when you budget is prioritize what is important to you. And when you prioritize what is important to you, then you are allowing your budget to align with your financial goals and your priorities. And this is the first step that you need to take to make sure that you are budgeting the right way. So if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, then continue watching the videos on my channel, which is all about financial literacy.